Today, we'll be speaking to a remarkable young lady who, in my opinion, is survivor personified. As one of the two survivors of the Socialist plane crash, which happened in 2005, despite being burned and having her life changed forever, she went on to star on America's Got Talent with a voice and a story that captured the world. My question is, who else can do this? Please join me now in welcoming Kechi Okwuchi to the story of becoming. Kechi Okwuchi, welcome to the story of becoming. We're so
Thank
honored to have
you.
you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you on. You have no idea. So, Kechi, I want us to do something a little different. I know many
Mhm,
people know your story,
mhm,
some in part, some since the crash,
mhm,
some since America's Got Talent.
mhm,
But I want us to start from the beginning, before the crash. I
mm.
want you to take us on a journey of your story. And in that way, people can gain the full picture, right?
Yeah.
So, to begin, you were born in Nigeria.
Yes. Very
Okay.
much so.
And
Yeah.
so, what was growing up in Nigeria like?
So I had a very happy childhood. I was an only
Oh,
child for quite a bit. My sister, who's my only sibling, was born when I was 11 years old. And so I'd grown up, basically spoiled by my parents for the first 11 years of my life. And they doted on me, as did the rest of my family. I was also the first grandchild on my mom's side, specifically. And that side of the family was pretty much who I got closer to and spent more time with as I grew up as a child. So yeah, I just remember my days being filled with fun and having fun with my cousins. I got very close to my cousins and my relatives, and yeah, I just had a really happy childhood, and I'm grateful for that.
so us Nigerians were very specific about where
Mm.
exactly we're born, right? We
Yes,
say, oh,
yes, yes.
Lagos or
Yeah.
Imo State. So, where
Uh-huh.
specifically were you born?
I was born in Lagos.
You were born in Lagos. Oh, perfect.
Mm,
And
mm.
you're a family of four, I believe.
Yes,
It's you,
four.
your
We're
younger
four.
sister, and your parents.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Uh, that's amazing. And so you went to secondary school in Nigeria. You attended Loyola Jesuit College
Yes,
in
correct.
Nigeria. So what was it like? You had a camaraderie of friends, I'm guessing.
Mm. Yeah, so Loyola was a different phase in life for sure. Definitely where I made the friends that became lifelong friends. Of course at the time we didn't know that, but majority of my friends I made during that time became part of what I have now as my close-knit friend group. So it's a combination of them and childhood friends, friends from primary school that make up my friend group today. So I'm grateful that I met those people during my time in Loyola. And Loyola was also interesting because, growing up as a teenager, that's where a lot of things I believe about myself and, a lot of foundational like things to do my identity were formed during that time of my life as well.
That's a very, very well said. That's beautiful. So what do you miss about Nigeria, growing up in Nigeria? Because I know now you're based in the US.
Yes, I am.
And what would you say is your fondest memory about growing up in Nigeria?
For me, my fondest memory is definitely hanging out with my cousins all together in like a group. I think, distance and time has kind of made things different where like we can only meet like, in that larger group online, through WhatsApp. And thank God for these, technologies. But it's just a shame, because my fondest memories are when we were all together in person, in our grandparents' house or in, another relative's house, and just no care in the world, just having fun and watching movies, eating great food. Like those are my fun memories. So I really look forward to a reunion with my cousins, and everyone being together.
No, yeah, Nigeria is all about community, right? And so
Exactly.
how often do you go back home to Nigeria?
Not as often as I'd like, to be honest. First time I went back since the accident, which was 2005, was 2015 for the 10-year anniversary. And then I went back again in 2018 for an event, 2019 for an event as well. I was meant to go back last year. Didn't work out, obviously, COVID. So I'm hoping I can go back this December again. But yeah, I'm basically trying to make it more regular now that I travel so much more.
Yeah, so see, this is so good to know, right? We never really knew all of this about
That's
you.
true.
So now let's, right? Let's shift gears a little bit now at this
Mm,
time.
mm,
In 2005, you had the transformative experience
mhm,
that changed your life forever. On
Yeah.
December 10th, 2005, you boarded the Sosoliso airline flight 1145, going back home for the holidays, Christmas period,
Mhm.
and something happened. And like I said earlier, a lot of people are familiar with the story. But
Yeah.
from your mouth, can you tell us more in detail what happened?
So, like you said, December 10th, 2005 was a Saturday. And it was the day when my life basically changed in every way possible.
Mm,
Um, I remember I was heading home for Christmas holidays. It was from my school, Loyola, going back
mhm,
to the East, which is where I lived. And it was not just me, but 60 other students from my school who lived in the same area. So usually we would travel together, whether it's by bus or by plane. So it wasn't unusual to be together that day on a plane. I remember it was a regular day. I remember nothing weird happened that day, at least for me. Everything was just normal. Boarded the bus on campus to the airport, got to the airport, boarded the plane with other passengers. There were 109 of us total, including the flight crew. I remember boarding the
mm,
plane. Everything was normal. The flight was delayed, but then after it came, we boarded. And then I was in an aisle seat. And in the aisle seat next to mine was one of my closest friends. So the plane took off, and again, normal, uneventful flight, which is what all flights should be, right? And I remember the trip is about an hour and a half. And I slept for most of it, talked to my friend for a little bit of it, but everything was fine until about 15, 20 minutes to landing. So when the pilot makes the announcement over the speaker that we're about to descend,
mhm,
that's when the turbulence started. And even then, it wasn't any reason to panic. This is something that happens with flights, so it's not a big deal. But then it started to
mhm,
get very like exaggerated. Like it started to get very bad, the turbulence. And I remember I couldn't
mhm.
see out the window because of where I was seating. But like in retrospect, that's probably a good thing because I mean, who would want to see, something like that anyway?
Exactly.
So like I remember just like the plane shaking so much and no one wanted to say anything because even though the tension kind of
Mm,
rose in the air, but like no one wanted to say anything because we're just like, I mean, who wants no one wants to jinx it and actually say what they think is happening. But then the lady at the back of the plane, I remember just hearing her like this blood piercing scream. And that scream just kind of caused panic everywhere and it just everything just got released and no one was running around or anything. It's just everyone was like just screaming like blood of Jesus, like people were screaming prayers, like. And I remember just sitting there in my seat, like in awe, like just confused, like what is happening? I'm sorry, like you don't board the plane and imagine the worst, like this is not. You'd never like it was like a movie, and I just remember being
wow.
shell shocked and just kind of not really able to like reconcile the fact that this was like reality like happening to
Mhm,
me right now. And my last memory is holding my friend's hand and she was like, what do we do? I was like, maybe we should pray. And before we could even say anything after that, that was the last thing I said to her. It's the last thing I said out loud. I remember this like I just remember this scraping like nails on chalkboard sound that like filled my brain and like just my senses were like shaking. And I remember just like that's the last thing. I remember just like the next thing that must have happened was just blacking out because my next vivid memory after that is opening my eyes and I was lying in the hospital bed and 5 weeks had passed and I was waking up from a coma. So obviously that probably on impact I probably passed out or something. Um
wow.
and yeah, so my next memory is that opening my eyes in South Africa. Although I do remember some things here and there that happened in between that I thought initially were like visions or dreams, but my mom confirmed actually happened. Like there was a time when I was like raising. I just remember lying on a gurney and looking at my hand like back and forth, and it was like my skin was just hanging off my hand in strings. And I remember just I couldn't feel any pain, in my memory. Like what I didn't there was no pain. My whole body was numb, but I just remember like just looking and my mom said that actually happened, yeah, because that was after they found my body in Port Harcourt and took me to the airport, and the doctors in PH were trying their best to stabilize me, and that was when that happened. So I remember that, um, and then that was it, yeah. And then next thing I know, I'm in South Africa, and life is completely different.
Oh my goodness. So you tell a story. I've heard you tell this so many times where you woke up singing some songs, some hymns that you've never yet heard or learned before. And that's
Yeah.
because your mom was singing. Tell us that story.
Yes. So while I was in the coma during that 5 weeks, my mom's voice was like a constant, and not in the beginning, but like towards the, I want to say halfway through the comatose period, I would hear her voice, and my mom would always like talk to me and tell me, Ketchy, you're going to be okay. You were in a plane crash, but like you're going to be fine. You're in South Africa. The hospital is called Mill Park. I just remember like a cycle, hearing her repeat these things to me. So that kind of became me keeping time whenever I would hear her voice. Like, even though I couldn't move, I couldn't see her, I couldn't do anything, I couldn't speak, but I would hear her voice. And sometimes she wouldn't speak, she would sing. And so she would sing this hymn that she had learned while I was away in school. So
Mm,
the fact that like I woke up knowing that hymn is remarkable because I'd never heard it until I heard her sing it. And I only heard her sing it in that comatose state. And she would sing it constantly to me. So I remember it was called Wonderful and Marvelous. And that was the hymn that I woke up knowing because she sang it constantly while I was in a coma. So it was interesting because we found out that, people actually, you just never know what they can hear or what their senses can pick up during that
exactly.
time. So it's so important
Yes.
what kind of thing you're feeding them during that time because you really never know. And interesting tidbit, that hospital, that trauma ICU, till today, they sing to their comatose patients now because of that
Are you
experience.
serious?
Yep. I found that out after I got on AGT. They saw me on the show and then they interviewed because I talked about them. And then they got interviewed and then the doctors, the nurses, they said that that's something that they started doing after I became a patient there with them. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, wow. So I know you're a very strong Christian woman. And
I
you
tried.
talked a little bit about how it's amazing that you were receiving the song your mom is singing. You just said that.
Mm,
I've always wanted to ask you this question. Like I said, I'm
mm.
familiar, we're all familiar with Kechi and your story. But I've always wanted to ask you before you got on that plane, maybe perhaps days before, months before,
Mhm.
did you have any feeling or dreams, or did your parents have anything that made you, that signaled danger somehow before you got on the plane?
No, I just but I do remember like one conversation I had during an excursion with a bunch of friends from the school campus, and we're in Abuja, we're like in the bookstore or something, and I don't remember what we were talking about. And one of my best friends would actually attest to this conversation, but something was said, and I remember, and I quote like what I said in response was like, "Omo, if that plane crashes, I'm going to be very upset." Something like that. I remember saying those words about something, which my friend took to imply like, why would anyone say, like, if a plane they're on crashes, they would have any reaction after the crash? Because like you're not going to survive that kind of thing. But like she just thought it was interesting that I said it that way. But like I
Hmm.
didn't read anything into it, obviously. Even
Of
after she told me
course.
after the fact, I still didn't think there was any connection. But I do think it's curious that I said that just offhandedly. But did I have any weird feeling prior to that day? No. Did I, like, it was just something, an offhanded comment I made at some point before the accident happened. But it didn't mean I didn't feel any type of way saying it. Like I didn't it didn't come from a place where I was thinking about that actually happening. There was no bad vibe, nothing, no
Of course.
premonition.
Of
Yeah,
course.
although I'm not, I think I'm not like, I might be maybe not, I want to say not alone. I don't think everybody felt like bad vibes or everybody didn't feel. I do feel like me, I didn't feel any bad vibes, but that doesn't mean other people didn't. Like I have a friend who said that that day was extremely weird to her. So I mean,
Mm,
yeah, yeah, she said it was like there was weird things that were happening that don't usually happen. And but I mean, I've never really been someone that notices like very detailed stuff anyway. So it's
yeah.
possible that they happen. I just, brushed it off. But I don't recall anything strange on my end.
Very, very interesting. So,
Mm.
from the crash up until this moment, you've had how many surgeries in total?
Over 100 and maybe 30-ish, something like that. Like
Mm.
130, 135. Yeah.
And are you still experiencing some pain and on a day-to-day basis?
There are some daily like discomforts that I have to endure. Um,
Okay.
but they're not to the point where they inhibit my ability to just live my life easily. I want to say that yeah, the pain is not anything. I mean, it's usually from something that maybe if I agitate a certain area too much, then that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but usually if I leave that area alone, like my leg, it's not a problem. The one thing I do deal with as a result of the accident, like on a daily, is the itching that comes with the healing scars. I think that's something that, if after how many years, more than 10 years, this is still an issue, then it's most likely going to be something I deal with for the rest of my life. But again, luckily, there's medication for that I take daily. And the medication, for the most part, helps to keep things at bay. I'm never not
Yeah.
itching, but it's never to like, luckily, it's rare for me to be in a place where it's a constant and it's like affecting my mood, affecting my ability to like just do the things I like to do. So that rarely happens. The worst of it is usually summer, when it gets extremely hot. Um, so I really like the cold, obviously. But yeah, but I love, love, love the cold. But yeah, I think for the most part I'm fine, and I thank God for that. Yeah.
So, how connected are you to perhaps the family of the other passengers that were on the flight? I know the
Mm,
young lady sitting next to you was a very close friend of
yes, she
yours. And I
was.
remember watching a clip of you where on your graduation you gave the speech, right? The
Hmm.
commencement speech. And
Yes,
you said something along the lines of, you're doing this not just for
for
yourself,
them.
but for everyone on that plane with
Yes.
you. Why was that so important? And how connected are you to their families?
It was extremely important to me to live my life in a way that would make the 60 angels proud.
Mm,
60 angels, what we
mm,
called them after the crash happened. Um, these are kids that did not get the second chance that I got, to continue high school, go to college, and I felt like a big part of my purpose in this life was is to live as excellently as possible, to show how much I appreciate, and I don't take for granted this life that God has given back to me, because I know people are watching, especially the loved ones that those kids left behind. And they have been nothing but encouraging and loving to me. Because when it first happened, all I got from them was love and prayers and support, because they saw my life as like the one good thing that came out of this situation. And so I
mm.
couldn't let them down. I couldn't, even whenever, and I dealt with so much depression and things like that, but I couldn't let myself stay in that place, because then what kind of, how would that be? What kind of testament would that be to those that passed away? How,
Exactly.
I can't do that to them. I had to prove that this life was worth saving. And I just wanted to do that for them. That's a pressure I put on myself. No one ever made me feel that way. Not the parents,
Mm,
not anyone around me. I just felt personally, this is something I have to do for them. And so every time a milestone happened in my life and I posted about it, they would always be the first to congratulate me and, just be so thankful. And it's because of those parents and those loved ones that I wanted to go back in person for the 10-year anniversary, to be there with them and commemorate this moment with them on December 10th, 2015, in person. I felt like when I got there, it meant so much to them to see me there in person. So I wanted to do that. And so yeah, that's really why they became a big part of my purpose, really, for anything, like my drive for anything I wanted to do in my life. And so when I graduated the way I did, I just felt like, look, this is not just for me. This is a life that I'm living for 60 other people. And so therefore this degree is for all of us, all 61 of us. So yeah, that's how I felt.
very well said. Like you just said right now, your purpose is to live as excellently as possible. Kechi, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to be very honest and just say this and make this bold statement. When I see you, I see survival personified. And this is regardless of, what you did afterwards and how you turned your lemons into lemonade, regardless of that, just this experience alone. And now what I've noticed is everyone and people across the world see you as a beacon of light, as a beacon of hope. How does that make you feel?
Honestly, it's very humbling. Never in my life prior to the accident did I think that, I mean, and how would I have known? Would I have ever known that, my life would be one that so many people would root for. Never would I have foreseen myself in this position, where um, just me living would inspire people to do the same. I mean,
Mm.
I don't feel like I'm doing anything exceptional. I think that everything that I try to do with I don't set out trying to do anything like that would be exceptional. But anything that I do end up doing, I put my all into it. I do it as well as I possibly can, whatever it might be. Whether it's small scale, whether it's private, personal, or out there in the world. And living that way, the fact that doing that has encouraged people to kind of do the same with their own lives. I think that that's the most humbling thing, that like the best gift that I really can have from just the world, really, because it makes me feel every time that I hear someone share that it makes me feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do with my life. If it makes me feel like I'm fulfilling something, with this life that God saved. So honestly, it's just I'm full of gratitude, and just it makes me feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose. That's what it does. So every time, and when I give speeches all the time and stuff, and it can be any number of people in the crowd, but I just need one person in that crowd to just take something away from this. To me, like that's like a speech well given. If one out of 100, 1,000 comes up to me and tells me, they didn't have to tell me, just if you leave feeling any type of positivity, that's really all I can ask for. So yeah, I'm very grateful that people feel this way. It doesn't really put a lot of pressure on me because I'm not really doing anything
Good.
I think
That's
is
good. I was
special.
going to ask.
Because yeah,
Yes.
honestly, like the only pressure I have is just living my life for the angels, and that's a self-inflicted pressure. But like the way people view me, I mean, that's just an honor, honestly. I'm not doing anything as far as I'm concerned, like out of my box. Everything I'm doing is still what I love to do, and even the challenging things are challenges within like my passions, so it's not like a chore, it's nothing. So it makes me happy that that seems to be enough for people, so I'm grateful.
That's good. Very well said. We're going to slowly wrap up this portion of the interview, but I want to just ask you one thing. Like I said, you've spoken so well, but from this accident, again, regardless of what you've achieved from it, what is one thing you've learned so far that you feel like is different from what other people are learning? Because your experience is different. Your
That's
experience is
true.
very
Awesome.
different. So what is that one key thing that you've learned, like that light bulb knowledge that
Mm,
you have
mhm.
that keeps you going every day?
I think what I've learned, one thing I've learned that really stands out to me, and this is based on my experience, honestly, because that's really the only place I can speak from, is the fact that we human beings are so much more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. I think people underestimate just how much we can actually endure and go through and come out on the other side. You see someone else's struggle and I think that can never be me. But guess what? Like the person who that happened to never thought it could be them either, you know?
Hmm.
And it's true that a lot of
Yes.
times you have to go through stuff to know what your limits are. And that's what life is, going through these different challenges that that we overcome to become better versions of ourselves. I feel like people should not underestimate just how enduring and how resilient they are. I did not know I was someone like this until something like this happened to me, you know? And so when people meet me and say, wow, you really went through so much, I can't, I'm like, don't say you can't because you really don't know. You don't know. Like God made us so resilient. Like we're such resilient creatures. And I believe my life is a sign of that fact, and I don't think you have to go through something as drastic as a plane crash to realize this about yourself. If you can realize about yourself without having to go through something like that serious, then please do, because you can push yourself further. If you've gone this far, you can go further. Let's just be honest, because that's really what it means. Like the fact that we're here, we've all overcome like mountains and obstacles that the past self thought was too big to overcome, but we did. We're here. The fact that we're here means we did. So we can overcome more. And that's just the fact. And that's what I've learned from my experience, I think.
No, that's just powerful. And thank you so much again, Kechi, sorry, for sharing your story with us.
Thank
We're going to
you.
wrap up this portion of the interview. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us so far. I hope you've learned a lot. We do have a purpose, like Kechi has aligned here. And so stay tuned for part 2 of The Story of Becoming with Kechi Okwuchi.